Captain Robert Hayes was enjoying his morning coffee when the emergency alarm shattered the peaceful quiet of the Galactic Council ship Unity. Red lights flashed across the bridge as his communications officer, a blue-skinned Andorian named Kex, frantically worked at his console. "Captain, we're receiving a priority distress signal from the Outer Rim," Kex announced, his antenna twitching with concern. "It's coming from the Kepler 442 system." Hayes set down his cup and moved to the captain's chair. In his 15 years of service with the Galactic Council, he'd responded to hundreds of distress calls, but something about this one felt different. The transmission was weak, crackling with interference that made his spine tingle. "Put it through the main speakers," he ordered. The bridge fell silent as a woman's voice filled the air, desperate and terrified. "This is Colony Director Jennifer Walsh of New Haven Settlement, Kepler 442 system. We are under attack by hostile primitives. 50,000 civilians trapped. Requesting immediate evacuation assistance." The message repeated every 30 seconds, each time growing weaker and more distorted. Hayes could hear explosions in the background, screams, the sound of buildings collapsing. His jaw tightened. Human colonies were supposed to be peaceful research stations, filled with families and scientists exploring the galaxy's far reaches. How long to reach Kepler 442? Hayes asked his navigator, a tall reptilian saurian called Voss. "At maximum warp, 18 hours, sir," Voss replied, his forked tongue flicking out nervously. "Make it 16, and send word to any council ships in the area." Within the hour, 2 other vessels had joined their rescue mission. The Harmony, commanded by Captain Diana Foster, and the Peaceful Dawn under Captain William Parker. All 3 ships pushed their engines beyond safe limits, racing through hyperspace toward what they hoped wouldn't be too late. Hayes spent the journey reviewing everything they knew about New Haven. It was a mining and research colony established just 5 years ago. The settlers were mostly families, with children attending the colony's small school. They had no military presence, no weapons capable of fighting off a determined attack. They were sitting ducks. When the 3 council ships dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler 442b, Hayes felt his heart sink. Smoke columns rose from multiple locations across the colony's main continent. The orbital defense stations were dark, their hulls torn open like tin cans. "Captain," his tactical officer Lieutenant Jake Morris called out, his voice shaking. "I'm reading no life signs from the orbital platforms, and the colony's communication array is completely destroyed." Hayes gripped his armrest tighter. "Take us into the atmosphere. Slow approach. Something doesn't feel right about this." The Unity descended to the planet's blue-green atmosphere, followed closely by her sister ships. As they broke through the cloud layer, the full horror of what had happened became clear. New Haven wasn't just damaged, it was utterly destroyed. Buildings lay in ruins, their metal frameworks twisted into unrecognizable shapes. The central plaza, where children used to play, was now a blackened crater. Bodies were scattered everywhere. Men, women, children, all lying motionless in the red dust that had once been their home. "Sweet Mother of Stars," whispered Dr. Helen Brooks, the ship's medical officer, staring at the scanner readings. "There are no survivors. Captain, none at all." Hayes felt sick. 50,000 people, wiped out completely. But what made it worse was the silence. The attackers were nowhere to be found. No enemy ships in orbit, no ground forces, nothing. "Run a full-spectrum analysis on those blast patterns," Hayes ordered. "I want to know what kind of weapons did this." Lieutenant Morris worked frantically at his console. "Sir, the energy signatures are consistent with Zephyrian particle cannons. But that doesn't make sense. The Zephyrian Empire is 3 sectors away from here." That's when Hayes realized the horrible truth. This wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter, and they'd been lured here like moths to a flame. "All ships, emergency retreat protocol," he shouted into a communicator. "It's a trap." But it was too late. The space around them shimmered as massive Zephyrian warships decloaked, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. Dozens of them, arranged in perfect attack formation. The enemy opened fire immediately. Bright green energy beams lanced through space, striking the Harmony first. Captain Foster's ship exploded in a brilliant fireball, taking all hands with her. The Peaceful Dawn lasted only seconds longer before enemy torpedoes tore through her shields. "Return fire," All weapons. Hayes screamed as a Unity shook under enemy assault. His ship was tough, but not tough enough to fight dozens of enemy vessels alone. Sparks flew from damaged consoles as his crew fought desperately. The ship's artificial intelligence, a sophisticated computer called Aria, announced damage reports in its calm female voice. Hull breach on Deck 7. Shield generators failing. Engines at 40% power. Hayes knew they had only one chance. Emergency jump. Any heading. Go, go, go. The Unity's jump drive engaged just as another wave of enemy fire would have finished them off. They barely escaped, limping through hyperspace with hull plating peeling away and half their crew wounded. As they fled, Hayes stared at the tactical display showing the massacre site. The distress call had been fake, broadcast using captured human equipment after everyone was already dead. The Zephyrians had used humanity's own people as bait, knowing the Council would respond to save innocent lives. They'd turned human compassion into a weapon, and Hayes was the only witness left to tell the tale. Admiral Michael Thompson stared at the holographic display floating above his desk, his weathered hands clenched into fists. The image showed the burned remains of New Haven Colony, bodies scattered like broken dolls across what used to be a playground. 50,000 innocent people, including 8,000 children, all dead because the Zephyrians wanted to set a trap. His aide, Commander Patricia Kelly, stood quietly by the door. She'd seen the Admiral angry before, but never like this. The man who'd spent 30 years keeping peace in the galaxy looked ready to burn it all down. "Sir, Captain Hayes is requesting medical leave for his crew. Half of them are suffering from severe trauma after what they witnessed," Kelly reported softly. Thompson nodded without looking up. "Approved. Send them to the best facilities we have. And make sure Hayes gets a commendation. Here's the only reason we know the truth about what happened out there." The Admiral's personal communication device buzzed. President David Wilson wanted to see him immediately. Thompson straightened his uniform and walked through the corridors of Terra Command, past rows of officers who fell silent as he passed. Word was already spreading through building. Everyone knew something terrible had happened. The president's office overlooked the sprawling military complex that stretched toward the horizon. Massive shipyards filled the sky, where humanity's newest warships were being constructed. Wilson stood with his back to the door, watching a news report on the wall screen. The reporter was talking about the tragic loss at New Haven, but the full details hadn't been released yet. "David," Thompson said as he entered. They'd known each other for 20 years, since Wilson was just a senator on the Defense Committee. Wilson turned around, his face grim. "I've read the preliminary report. Tell me Hayes got it wrong. Tell me this wasn't as bad as it sounds." Thompson activated his tablet and projected the full battle analysis into the room. Three-dimensional models of the destroyed Council ships appeared, along with detailed scans of the colony ruins. "It's worse. They used our people's corpses as bait, David. The distress call was broadcast after everyone was already dead." The president sank into his chair. "How do we even respond to something like this? The Galactic Council will want a measured response. Diplomatic protests, economic sanctions, maybe a limited military action." The Council ships that responded were destroyed too. Thompson reminded him. 300 more dead because they tried to help us. The aliens we called friends for decades are lying in pieces because of Zephyrian treachery. Wilson stood and walked to the window, watching a massive carrier being assembled in the nearest shipyard. Construction robots swarmed over its hull like mechanical ants, welding armor plating and installing weapon systems. "What are your recommendations, Admiral?" Thompson's voice was cold as space itself. "Total war, sir. Complete annihilation of their military capabilities. We show the galaxy that humanity doesn't just defend itself. We end threats permanently. The casualties could be enormous. The cost of looking weak is higher," Thompson interrupted. "If we let this slide, every 2-bit empire in the galaxy will think humans are easy targets. Our colonies will be sitting ducks from here to the outer rim." Wilson turned back to face him. The weight of command showed in every line on his face. Making this decision would define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations. "You're talking about fighting the entire Zephyrian Empire. They have over 200 worlds, thousands of ships. And we have something they don't," Thompson replied. "We have righteous fury, and the best military technology in known space. The president was quiet for a long moment, staring at the holographic display of New Haven's ruins. Somewhere in that red dust were the remains of teachers, doctors, children who'd never grow up, families who'd thought they were safe under humanity's protection. Wilson nodded grimly. Do it. Every ship we have. Show the galaxy what happens when they touch our people. Within minutes, emergency communication channels lit up across human space. Every fleet commander received the same priority message. Operation Retribution was authorized. All leave was cancelled. All ships were to report to staging areas immediately. In the orbital shipyards above Earth, construction shifts were extended to 24 hours. Workers who'd been building civilian transport suddenly found themselves welding armor onto military vessels. The massive forges of Mars began churning out ammunition at maximum capacity. Even the research stations in the outer colonies started converting their manufacturing facilities to produce military hardware. Admiral Thompson watched from his office as humanity's war machine came to life. Hundreds of ships began moving through space, converging on rally points throughout human territory. The newest dreadnoughts fresh from the shipyards joined battle-scarred veterans that had fought pirates in the frontier systems. Commander Kelly appeared at his door again. Sir, we're getting reports from across the galaxy. Alien governments are asking what's happening. Our fleet movements are being monitored by every intelligence service from here to the galactic core. Thompson smiled for the first time all day, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Good. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when someone makes the mistake of thinking humanity is weak. In the depths of Terra Command's strategic center, war planners worked frantically at holographic displays showing the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated Zephyrian positions. Blue markers showed human forces moving into position. The scale was unprecedented. Humanity was about to unleash the largest military operation in galactic history. The message was already spreading through diplomatic channels across known space. Humanity was going to war, and this time, they weren't interested in prisoners or negotiations. The galaxy was about to learn why you never, ever use human children as bait. Admiral Michael Thompson stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Vengeance, watching as space itself seemed to tear apart around them. 2,800 human warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like deadly stars against the black void. The largest military fleet in human history had arrived at the edge of Zephyrian space, and they came not as peacekeepers, but as harbingers of destruction. The bridge of the Vengeance was a marvel of human engineering. Holographic displays showed every ship in the fleet, from the smallest destroyer to the massive carrier vessels that could house entire squadrons of fighters. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their faces grim with purpose. Everyone knew why they were here. Everyone had seen the images from New Haven. Fleet status report, Thompson commanded, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of activity. Commander Lisa Parker, his tactical officer, studied the readouts flowing across her console. All ships reporting ready. Weapon systems charged, shields at maximum. The Titan-class battleships are requesting permission to deploy their Nova cannons. Thompson nodded. The Nova cannons were humanity's newest weapon, capable of cracking a moon in half with a single shot. Today, they would be used on military targets, but the message would be clear to anyone watching. Deploy all weapons. No holding back. The first Zephyrian outpost appeared on their sensors, a heavily fortified station guarding the border. It was massive, bristling with defensive turrets and protected by overlapping shield generators. Under normal circumstances, it would take a full battle group weeks to reduce such a fortress. Thompson checked his chronometer. Time to target. 30 seconds, sir, replied Lieutenant Connor Walsh from the navigation station. Fire when ready. No warnings. The Vengeance's main gun spoke first. Quantum torpedoes, each containing enough antimatter to level a city, streaked through space at near-light speed. They phased through the station's shields as if they weren't there, a trick of quantum physics that had taken human scientists decades to perfect. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Zephyrian outpost simply ceased to exist, vaporized in a flash of blue-white energy. Debris that had once been a mighty fortress scattered into the void like cosmic dust. Target eliminated, Parker reported calmly, moving to secondary objectives. The human fleet advanced like a tide of death, spreading out across multiple vectors. Each battle group had specific targets, communication relays, supply depots, patrol stations, anything that kept the Zephyr military machine running. The second outpost tried to fight back. Energy beams lanced out from its defensive turrets, striking the approaching human ships. But humanity's new armor technology absorbed the impacts harmlessly. The return fire was devastating. Kinetic bombardment rounds, massive tungsten slugs fired at tremendous velocity, punched through the station's hull like it was made of paper. The entire facility was reduced to a crater of molten metal in minutes. "Sir, we're receiving multiple surrender signals from border stations throughout the sector," Parker announced, her fingers dancing across a control panel. "They are broadcasting on all frequencies, claiming they are non-combatants." Thompson's expression didn't change. Ignored. Continue the advance. The fleet's artificial intelligence systems, networked across all ships, coordinated the assault with inhuman precision. Battle robots deployed from carrier vessels to eliminate any survivors who might escape in life pods. Hunter-killer drones swept through debris fields, ensuring no one lived to report human tactics back to the Zephyr High Command. Captain Diana Foster, commanding the battleship Thunderbolt, opened a communication channel. "Admiral, my deep space sensors are picking up a Zephyr relief fleet approaching from the inner systems. Approximately 40 vessels, including 2 dreadnoughts." Thompson smiled coldly. "Let them come. All ships, prepare for engagement. I want them to see exactly what they are facing before they die." The Zephyr fleet dropped out of hyperspace an hour later, expecting to find their border defenses intact and maybe a small human task force to drive off. Instead, they found a wall of human warships stretching across space like a steel curtain. The alien commander tried to retreat immediately, but it was too late. Human fighters poured out of carrier bays like angry hornets. Each pilot was connected to the fleet's tactical network, sharing targeting data and coordinating attacks with computer-assisted precision. The Zephyr ships, designed for fighting other aliens with similar technology, were completely outmatched. Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes, the fleet's communications officer, monitored alien broadcasts as the battle unfolded. "So, I'm picking up panic transmissions from the Zephyr fleet. They are calling for reinforcements, reporting that humans have impossible technology and requesting immediate evacuation." The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. Advanced human weapons tore through Zephyr shields and armor like they were made of tissue paper. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids reduced enemy ships to glowing slag. When the smoke cleared, not a single alien vessel remained intact. "Continue the advance," Thompson ordered. "All ships, maintain formation. We have an empire to destroy." Word of the human advance spread through Zephyr space faster than their ships could travel. Military bases went dark as their commanders realized they were facing annihilation. Some tried to fight, others attempted to surrender, but the result was always the same. The human fleet moved forward relentlessly, leaving nothing but wreckage in their wake. Deep in Zephyr space, Emergency Council convened as reports poured in of unstoppable human forces. Their military commanders, who had thought humans were weak prey, now faced a terrifying reality that they had awakened something far beyond their ability to handle. The iron tide of human vengeance had begun, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it. The Zephyr Empire, which had terrorized dozens of worlds for over 2 centuries, was falling apart like a house of cards in a hurricane. Their mighty fleets, once the terror of the Outer Rim, lay scattered across space as twisted metal and cooling plasma. Admiral Thompson watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as his tactical display updated every few seconds, showing another Zephyr stronghold going dark. Commander Lisa Parker coordinated the fleet's movements with deadly precision. "So, the 4th and 7th battle groups have secured the Kepler Nebula sector. Resistance was minimal. Most of their ships surrendered without firing a shot." Thompson nodded grimly. Fear was spreading faster than his ships could travel. Word of humanity's overwhelming technological superiority had reached every corner of Zephyr space. Their soldiers were abandoning their posts, their commanders were fleeing in unmarked ships, and their government was in complete chaos. The holographic display showed the crown jewel of the Zephyr Empire, Zephyros Prime, their capital world. The planet was massive, home to over 8 billion aliens, protected by the most advanced defenses their civilization could build. Orbital defense platforms ringed the world like a deadly necklace, each one capable of destroying an entire fleet. Or so they thought. Lieutenant Connor Walsh turned from his station, his young face excited. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Zephyros Prime. It's coming from their High Council chambers." "Put it through," Thompson ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a group of tall, reptilian aliens in ornate robes. Their leader, an ancient creature with scarred scales and fearful eyes, stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice trembled with desperation. "Admiral Thompson of the human fleet, I am High Council of Rak of the Zephyrian Empire. We wish to discuss terms of surrender. Our actions at New Haven were the work of rogue military commanders. We are prepared to pay reparations, to submit to galactic law, to—" Thompson cut him off with a gesture. His voice, when he spoke, was colder than the void between stars. "You used our children as bait. You slaughtered 50,000 innocent people to set a trap. You forfeited any right to mercy when you turned human compassion into a weapon." The alien counselor's scale shifted to a pale green, a sign of terror in his species. "Please, Admiral, there are billions of civilians on our worlds. Surely galactic law—" "Your military will be destroyed," Thompson continued, ignoring the pleas. "Your government will fall. Your empire ends today. The only mercy you will receive is that your civilians will be evacuated before we glass your military installations." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Thompson turned to his communications officer. "Send word to all battle groups. Operation Endgame is authorized. Colonel Mitchell, you have tactical command." Colonel James Mitchell, commanding from the assault carrier Retribution, studied the massive holographic battle map floating in his ship's war room. Every Zephyr military world was marked in red, their defensive capabilities catalogued down to the last weapon emplacement. His staff of tactical officers worked frantically, coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. Status report on the evacuation fleets. Mitchell asked. Captain Angela Brooks, his logistics coordinator, checked her displays. "The civilian transport ships are standing by. We've got agreement from the Galactic Council for emergency refugee processing on 4 to 7 worlds. The aliens don't want to be seen as supporting the Zephyrians, but they won't turn away civilians either." Mitchell nodded. Humanity might be furious, but they weren't monsters. Every civilian evacuation would be monitored to ensure no military personnel escaped justice, but innocent families would be spared. "Begin the final phase," Mitchell ordered. Across Zephyrian space, human fleets moved into position above every military world. The sight was terrifying. Massive dreadnoughts hanging in space like steel gods, their weapons trained on the planets below. Smaller ships deployed clouds of evacuation drones that swept through cities, scanning for civilians and marking safe zones. On Zephyros Prime, panic filled the streets as transport ships descended from orbit. Human Marines, their power armor gleaming, maintained order while robotic systems processed millions of refugees. The evacuation was swift and efficient, a testament to human organizational capability. General Patricia Hayes coordinated the ground operations from her command ship. "All civilian areas are clear. Colonel, military zones are isolated and ready for bombardment." Mitchell gave the order that would echo through history. "All ships, commence orbital bombardment. Military targets only. Make it clean." The sky above every Zephyr military world lit up like 1,000 suns. Plasma cannons designed to crack asteroids focused their fury on fortified positions. Kinetic bombardment systems dropped tungsten rods from orbit, each impact creating earthquakes that could be felt across continents. Defense platforms that had protected these worlds for centuries were reduced to glowing craters in minutes. The Zephyr Navy, once the pride of their empire, met its end in the depths of space. Admiral Thompson watched as the last enemy dreadnought, the pride of Zephyros, tried to make a final stand. It lasted exactly 43 seconds against concentrated fire from 6 human battleships. Within 2 weeks, the Zephyrian Empire had ceased to exist. Their government buildings were rubble, their military was destroyed, their fleets were scrap metal drifting in space. The survivors were scattered across refugee camps on distant worlds, their once mighty civilization reduced to a footnote in history. But humanity's message had been delivered with crystal clarity. "Touch our people, and we will end you completely." The galaxy had learned a new rule, written in fire and steel across the ruins of those who had dared to use human children as bait. The hammer had fallen, and an empire was no more. 6 months after the Zephyrian Empire was wiped from existence, the great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from over 200 alien civilizations had gathered on the neutral world of Concordia Prime, their conversations creating a symphony of different languages, clicks, whistles, and electronic tones. At the center of it all sat the Council's ruling body, 12 of the galaxy's most powerful species, their faces showing everything from curiosity to barely concealed fear. Admiral Michael Thompson walked through the massive doors of the chamber, his dress uniform crisp and perfect. Behind him followed a small honor guard of human marines, their power armor polished to mirror brightness. The chamber fell silent as every eye, sensor, and optical organ focused on the man who had orchestrated complete destruction of a galactic empire. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, a vast sphere that could hold 10,000 beings in perfect acoustics. Floating platforms carried delegates from species that couldn't breathe the standard atmosphere, while others sat in pools of specialized liquid or hung from a ceiling on web-like structures. Council of Rex of the Andorian Collective, his blue skin pale with worry, activated the chamber's translation systems. Admiral Thompson, you stand before this assembly to answer for humanity's actions in the former Zephyrian territories. The complete annihilation of a star-spanning empire raises serious questions about... About what? Thompson interrupted, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. About justice? About protecting innocent lives? Or about the fact that your precious galactic law failed to protect 50,000 human civilians? A ripple of nervous movement went through the assembled delegates. The crystalline hegemony's representative, a being of living mineral, chimed with harmonic tones. Admiral, the scale of your response was unprecedented. Entire worlds are bombarded from orbit. The economic disruption alone has affected dozens of sectors. Thompson stepped to the center of the chamber, where a holographic projector waited. With a gesture, images filled the air above him. The ruins of New Haven Colony. Bodies scattered across what had been a school playground. The burned remains of families who'd thought they were safe under humanity's protection. The Zephyrians murdered 50,000 innocent humans, Thompson stated, his voice cutting through the shocked gasps of several delegates. They used our people's corpses to bait a trap for rescue ships. They turned our children's bodies into weapons against those who came to help. The insectoid delegate from the hive clusters clicked mandibles in distress. But surely diplomatic solutions could have been. Where was diplomacy when human children were being slaughtered? Thompson's voice rose slightly. Where was this council when the distress calls were being broadcast? You move slowly, debate endlessly, and form committees to discuss forming other committees. Meanwhile, innocent people die. Commander Lisa Parker stood at the chamber's entrance, monitoring the feeds being broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings were watching this confrontation, and she could see the real-time analysis scrolling across her tablet. Public opinion was shifting as they watched. Many species were beginning to understand humanity's position. The Aquatic Federation's delegate, speaking through a water-filled atmospheric suit, bubbled a question. What assurance do we have that humanity won't target other species for perceived slights? Your military capabilities far exceed what we previously understood. Thompson smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Let me be crystal clear about humanity's position going forward. He turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates across the chamber. Touch our people again, anywhere in this galaxy, and we will end your species. Not defeat you, not conquer you, end you completely. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background hum of life support systems seemed muted. Several delegates shifted nervously, while others activated private communication channels to report back to their governments. However, Thompson continued, his tone becoming more measured, humanity has no interest in conquest or expansion at others' expense. We want to trade, explore, and share knowledge with peaceful species. The Zephyrians weren't destroyed because they were aliens. They were destroyed because they committed an act of genocide against human civilians and used that genocide as a weapon. The Feline Coalition's representative, a graceful being with fur that shifted colors, spoke carefully. Admiral, your demonstration of military superiority has altered the balance of power in this region of the galaxy. How do we move forward? Simple, Thompson replied. You remember what happens to those who hurt innocents under humanity's protection. You remember that we keep our promises, whether they are promises of friendship or promises of destruction. The recording of Thompson's speech spread across the galaxy within hours, transmitted through quantum communication networks that span thousands of light years. On trade stations and colony worlds, beings watched humanity's declaration with a mixture of respect and fear. The effects were immediate and lasting. Human colonies that had been seen as soft targets were suddenly off-limits to every pirate, raider, and opportunistic empire in the galaxy. Ships bearing Earth's blue and white flag found themselves given priority docking at spaceports that had previously made them wait for days. Captain Robert Hayes, now recovered from his ordeal at New Haven, commanded a new exploration vessel on humanity's frontier. He found that first contact situations had changed dramatically. Where alien species had once been dismissive or hostile, they now approached human ships with careful respect. The galaxy had learned a new rule, written in the ashes of the Zephyrian Empire. Humanity was no longer seen as a minor species to be ignored or exploited. They were recognized as a force of nature, terrible when angered but fair to those who dealt with them honestly. The message was simple and had echoed across every star system. Humans were not to be trifled with. Ever. **** the END ****.